So questions, how do I get my child to use the toilet? Very, very I think this was the top one out of so many that I got. They don't even seem to know they have to go. How do I teach something if they don't understand and they're nonverbal? Okay. We're gonna zoom out for a second, and I want to offer a little bit of a different perspective. It's that potty training is not necessarily a behavior problem, even though behavior therapists will help you with it. It's something much deeper. It's actually a biological connection. And so that's where foundationally we should be addressing that first. And I know it seems like, how do we do that? And my goal is that by the end of this, you will know how to do that. Okay. So I have some notes because I wanted to make sure I covered everything well. And think of it this way, if you're thinking about your child and the quality questions that we need to ask ourselves is, if the body can't feel it, can the brain really act on it? And I know that it leads to large amounts of frustration. And I didn't expect the large amount of need for this, because within either of our programs, both the neuronutrition flow and the BLA, these are things that happen so seamlessly and naturally through the process. And yes, potty training regardless, just so you know, I say that. Potty training regardless of if you have a child on the spectrum, complex case, or neurotypical, is still going to require two parts. They need to have the interoception within the body that tells them that they have to go. They also need to have the receptive language for that. And I can see that I froze again, but hopefully that keeps going. I tried to restart my internet before, and unfortunately, it's just not doing what I want it to. So what is interoception? So I thought, this is what this picture. A visual. It's not as big as I'd like, but hopefully you guys can understand. Think of this being your brain is a little house, and there's a bell in the house called the amygdala. And so we have the gut and we have the bladder. And obviously a full bladder or a full gut, right? Let's just say we have a full bladder or we have a full gut. And it needs to come out. Those are just the facts. And what I want to offer is that there's a lot in between that we don't realize is happening. So think of it as this is the control room. And I'm going to try to use it as more of a metaphor, because I wrote a little metaphor for this. And inside the control room, there is an alarm system. So this is probably the most important thing for you to understand, is that there's an alarm system in the limbic brain called the amygdala. That's why it's a bell. It looks like, think of it as like the text messages for the whole body is found there. And its job is to tell the body, number one, that also I am safe. And it controls behavior. It also controls memory. So when you're trying to teach a child something, this, even if it's speech or potty training, that alarm system or that area is extremely crucial to have in a healthy order. And what impacts it? So this is really cool. So I will offer one more thing. It also controls your child's nervous system. This is something people don't talk about as much. And the nervous system, although physical, it's also very triggered by the environment, the external environment, both from a feelings perspective, but also a physical perspective. So imagine that there are 4 pathways, okay? Because I'm going to give you this is going to give you a completely different idea and perspective around potty training. You might have heard of the gut-brain connection for autism, for improved behaviors, for improved speech. It's also what's necessary for potty training. And I'm going to talk about this in maybe a different way you've heard, because most people talk about the gut-brain connection with just this one piece. which is the vagus nerve. It's like highway, right? Notice how all the fibers are going upwards towards the control system. Well, there's a reason why they're going up. There's actually 90% of our fibers actually go up. Only 10% of the information that we receive is actually from the control center. So an inflamed gut generally means an inflamed brain. You've probably heard that. That's probably not new knowledge. But what you may not know is that there are actually three other pieces to this. We actually get more information from the gut to the brain. We have 4 pathways. One is through the bloodstream. So imagine that there's like blood flowing to the brain. And this also goes up to the amygdala. We also have microbes that travel through the body. And some of them will potentially go through blood, but there's also our immune system. And the last piece of this is through our spinal column. So there, if I was to draw a sideways picture, it would look like the spinal column goes up to the brain. The vagus nerve is in front, it goes up to the brain. Some microbes go up to the brain in chemical form, or in microbe form, very, very minuscule. And then we have the immune system, which is basically also looking at almost the lymphatic system, goes up to the brain. Now, I think it's interesting that they all go up to the brain, but even more interesting, they all go to this one specific area. So once we have this perspective that most of the issue that we're having is actually not behavioral, but it's biological, it puts a lot of empowerment into your hands. You have the control over this. And we have most children, and I'm going to say most, I'm going to say all children so far, not even most, that I have talked to, because when I see comments like that, I will try to engage and just get my own data. I will ask them, do you have a picky or sensory eater? And so far, 100% of the time, it's been yes. So your child's gut is actually texting the brain all day long. And if what's going into the gut is limited of nutrients and supports and fibers to feed it, then you can imagine that that messaging isn't going to be very clear. And so when it comes to interoception, which is the connection between the bladder, the gut, and the brain, we can see where we're missing a lot of the boat. So they can't feel, and what does it feel like for your child? Your child will likely not be able to feel the fullness of bladder pressure until sometimes the very last minute. I know some children, like if you think about children potty training, and I'm privy to having a little niece who is potty training and just starting to speak. So this is kind of fun for me, being in the field that I am in. And so, like the difference between, and she signs more than speaks, but meaning like when she's going like this, saying, I need to go, sometimes it's already too late. But she's a child with a developing brain. Now her diet is amazing, and she's like not even 2 years old and almost fully potty trained. But looking at that for your child is like, what is happening in between? They may not be able to also feel their sigmoid or rectal. So there's this area here called the sigmoid as it fills, which stimulates the rectum to start to kind of stretch. So that's the other place. And so your child may only be getting this messaging so late. And they also be missing their hunger cues. So you may have a child who doesn't have as much interest in eating. And it's not because they do not understand. There is this feeling like our children are maybe not able to understand, but they actually can. It's that they're not able to have that signal underneath and buried under all the noise. So you telling them and bringing them to the bathroom frequently is what we call fluke support. It might happen just by luck, but not because they can actually sense it. And, and we can't expect a child to hear a whisper when their nervous system is blasting sirens. And that means that our children, when they're under inflammation from having either a poor diet or mycotoxins, or which is mold, they are not able to get that. So although so many of the comments that I had were that they felt like these kids weren't moving forward. I will offer that. I'll give you an example. We have an amazing mom in our program. And the reason I'm using her story is just because it's the last one that I talked to that had this story. It's not a new story. We have this happen all the time, where her goals were actually not potty training yet. They were focused on speech and regulation and calmness. But interestingly enough, with the few words that are starting to increase within a very short period, she's been in the program 3 months, she was like, we've been trying to potty train my son for like a full year now. And all of a sudden it's like he gets it, because it requires also receptive language to be enhanced. And all that she's doing, she hasn't even done the detoxes or anything of that sort yet. She's just focusing on neuronutrition. Okay, so I want to reframe a little bit of what people generally think. They think it's about compliance. They think that children, and I have seen some really not nice comments come up that say it's a parenting failure. It's not a parenting failure. Nobody got the toolkit or the book for potty training and interoception when their child was born. Maybe they got a potty training book for a neurotypical child that can feel interoception, but they didn't get the manual that certain developments have to happen based on nutrient capacity and a lower toxic load or burden. Okay, so the other thing to understand is like, what is the role of inflammation in potty training, also known as mitochondrial dysfunction? So for kids, we don't generally call it inflammation. We call it mitochondrial dysfunction, which means the energy center of the cell is not able to process or do its Krebs cycle, which is like a process in the body that is energetic, because it is suffering from inflammation. And it's actually being impacted all the way down to the cellular structure. So if the mitochondria, which are basically like these tiny little bodies in the cell, are low on fuel because of nutrition gaps, the brain doesn't even have the energy to sort those signals properly. And so that's the best way. And I'd love to get some feedback on, like, was that really well explained? Is there a thumbs up? Scale of 1 to 10, I'm at an 8 for kind of understanding that this is something that is happening within my child's body and I have control over it. Okay, not yet potty trained, but having a dry diaper on, waking up in the morning. What would that mean? That's a great question. And so perfect. I love that. All right, Jana, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. So when they have a dry diaper in the morning, it does tell us that there is the ability, and I know you just saw your story in there, Anna. I usually don't call out names, but here you are. So usually when you would wake up with a dry diaper, it means that they are holding it. They are able to. So at that level, I would say that it would be a good time. Usually you get these little cues or signs that it's time to potty train. So I would say that if your child is consistently waking up with a dry diaper, they are able to, like, we are just, I hate to say it this way. So for posting read purposes, that I'm going to be more, what's the word I'm looking for, but professional, is that we are a lot of different sphincters throughout our body. And so we have an anal sphincter, we have a ureter sphincter. And so these are things that we do have to be able to hold. Now, most children do have a pretty good control of this. The issue stems from the feeling of the bladder being completely full. So they can hold it, which is great. But when we hit like this certain level, if they don't get the cue and the signal due to either inflammation or lack of nutrient capacity, or the signaling is a little bit skewed, it's because they're not going to be able to always hold it. Now, most people, if you think about how we drink throughout the day, most of us are usually bigger drinkers in the morning and we taper off in the evening. So it could also just be that his bladder isn't as full in the morning. So he's able to hold it throughout the night. So yeah, I mean, and for a lot of kids, that's actually the first time they ever have success, is by bringing their child to the bathroom in the morning. Thanks. I always felt it was my fault because her twin brother just potty trained so easily. No, it's not your fault. And it is completely in your control. And I think that that's the thing I would love for you to come from when I post things like that on social media, it's not because I'm trying to judge a parent at all, just the opposite. It's more that I know that these are some of the areas that many of you are struggling with, and there is another side to it, and we get to control it. Like ABA is not going to have the same success that you will. They're not running after your child with a potty all day. So I want to kind of shift a bit and say, when we calm the gut, we feed the microbes, we increase the minerals, we start to stabilize the blood sugar, we support detox pathways, not detoxing itself, but we support detox pathways. The message to the amygdala will actually change. It becomes clearer. The information can be received properly. The alarm quiets, and then interoception naturally improves. And suddenly it's like they feel it. And it's almost like people describe it as a light bulb going off. They're like, it's like he just all of a sudden got it. It's like before they just didn't get it, but now they get it. So, and that's when that is actually the moment that our responsibility shifts to being a teacher to potty train. So it's almost like you do have some extra steps. The beauty of those extra steps is that the same process that supports healthy potty training and interoception are the steps that lead to speech, communication, lesser meltdowns, less constipation. So you're not having to do extra work. The one area that you're focusing on will support all of the other body systems because the body is systemic. And this is why it becomes not forced. So if your child is stuck in potty training and this was like, okay, I feel so much better, and you want to know more about that and you want to learn about the neuronutrition flow, I'm not going to talk about it today, but I am going to leave my button up for people to be able to book a call with me. And it's going to be up for the whole rest of the chat as well. If one of the other topics is like, oh, okay, I actually do want to have a chat about that, then I will leave it there. And I think it's just like a nice, easy practice. Oh, and it's not book a call with Michelle these days. It's book a call with me. All right. So now moving on. So this was I hope that this was a good visual. Do you guys like pictures? Give me like a thumbs up if you do. Because I mean, my art isn't so great. I mean, I feel like it's a little smaller than I anticipated, but okay. And let me just see if there's anybody else I can answer. I feel like my chat is not working the way I want. Okay, amazing. Okay, so let's see. We noticed the shift that you are talking about with my daughter. She was potty trained. We took her on a schedule, but once we started making games with it, she started to tell us when she actually had to go. Amazing. So like validation to its pure form right there. And I think that Jana, oh yes, Jana's in our program. Nighttime is difficult because he can't go back to sleep if I wake him up. Daytime is good. He understands holding it. So I'm curious. Okay, so this is a little bit of an interesting thing because I'm going to ask this question. Is that why would you wake him up at night? He should technically be able to hold it till the morning. And if he can't, there are probably a few other things at play, such as candida, mold, potential for histamine response. So I do want to offer that is a different root cause. Okay, Fiorella, I have been struggling with potty training. Well, now you know the basics of what needs to happen, and the how to do this is often what we teach in our programs. Ideally, though, it's a whole process. It takes time. For most of our families, within about 3 months, they're starting to see the amount of receptive language grow that is now becoming a possibility. So I want to offer the timeline is realistic. Like I'm not going to promise you something, and that's just like the starting point. And for some kids, it's like they were already so close to that space, depending on diet, exposure, toxicity, that it's really like an easy to follow next step. I hope that kind of makes sense. Because you try, and I'll offer this too, like ABA or you trying to bang against a door that doesn't understand is causing probably more deregulation than needed. So sometimes for most people, when they step back and they actually try again like a month later. They give like a little or a 2-week break even. If they're able to do this, they see a ginormous progress. Can you expand on shouldn't be able to hold it all night? MacPeace 3 times in the night and I'm still awake. Okay. So that is interesting. So one of the things I would expand on that, number one, I know you're in the bigger program, so come to coaching on this. I would like to first know, like, what is the last time he does and what would be like the block of time that he can hold it. For kids that are at the potty training stage, I'm going to say that slowly, there is a bit of an interoception curve that does need to happen. So let's just say a neurotypical child can potty train at around 2. Then usually they also have like nighttime delays, and usually it's between like 2, 2.5, 3 at the most. So if we were to expand that to a child that is starting to potty train really well during the day, we would give them that grace period, but 3 times a night is pretty excessive. And so at that point, I'd be looking more at, even though we are looking at expansion of diet, especially when people start in any of our programs, we need to make sure that we're at least proliferating the gut microbiome. But there comes a time where we can start to look at histamine and rotation diets as being the highest supporters, which means that we rebuild the gut in a way that also allows for periods of lowered inflammatory foods. Because if you take everything away and you go on a restricted diet from the beginning, you actually lose interoception as well. So at first it's about nutrient capacity, but I'll offer Loretta that this is something I would like you to bring to coaching, because I think that it's really powerful to have this discussion, because we will. But it's absolutely, but we always do want to give them a little bit of a grace period if they have potty trained recently. And I know that our community manager, Jen, also has kind of a lot of, I shouldn't say kind of, she has a lot of information on this. And I'm sure that we can pull together a resource. And I think she probably already has one in the community, to be honest. This is not a new topic for sure. Okay, so so I did do this. So now let's talk about a little bit about, I had a couple of different ways that I was going to work on this, and then I realized that I changed. Oh, did I forget my other notes? Did I forget? Oh no, I didn't. Yes, I did. Did I not? So my next topic that I know for sure, and if there's any questions in between, don't feel bad about dropping them in there. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So even though some of my notes came through and some of them did not, and that's okay. I can just grab them right now. Just bear with me. All right, I love this. I'll read this as I'm pulling out my notes here from the other space. Okay, so, okay, I think I'm here. Sorry, I'm not. I lost my train of thought. Okay, so I'll talk about it a little bit differently then, because I am sure that I had that in there, and I am just really, really surprised that it didn't cross over, because I really wanted to talk about fecal transplant. I think that's really important. And for some weird reason, maybe I talked about it. Okay. All right. Anyways, what is very interesting to say is that you just don't see all the small minor changes in the direction of the click of the child to suddenly understand potty training in the bathroom. You just stay enormously consistent, and you just see it when it all aligns. It's like a flash that happens. That's so good. Thank you for sharing that, Anna. That's a great perspective as someone who's just been through it. For us, it took consistent brain nutrition and daily teaching the same instruction until one day it all came together, and it was absolutely wow. I think the lesson for me was to understand that the body does so much in the background. However, we see only the final alignment. This is so true. I like the timer idea. I think this is a great tool. And there are so many ways. Okay, I will offer that when it comes to potty training practices, there are so many opposing methods that, and all of them seem to work for a certain type of child. So understanding your child's learner type, such as, are they kinesthetic? Are they auditory? Are they visual? Those are the areas that I would foundationally look at, and then choose a methodology that matches. So some people are super successful letting their child just walk around naked, and it's like it's like a kinesthetic feeling. It's a sensory. They're learning through sensory. And other children will do better with a visual, and other children will do better with like the potty training song. So I do feel that there's not a right way that is like carved in stone for success. And the truth of the matter is the same thing for picky eating. There is so many different approaches. We have a really great framework that works for everyone, but there are 3 frameworks within the framework so that we can match every type of learner type, and we can explore the different ways that they're going to accept food. So again, just always remembering there's so much information now. There's no like perfect way, but that it can be successful if you're consistent, for sure. And when you understand your child's learner type, it happens a lot faster. Now, this is not my area of expertise. We have Dr. Juno, who teaches in the neuro program for that specific topic, not potty training itself, but for understanding learner types. And yeah, definitely if you are curious about that, you can book a call with me.